So the other day, I made a video about Stephen A. Smith's appearance on the Joe Budden podcast where the ESPN star talked about Shannon Sharpe's departure a bit more in depth. Since Shannon left Undisputed, it was reported that he left due to the recent issue the former Broncos star had with Skip Bayless, one being the fallout from the Damar Hamlin tweet where Skip Bayless pretty much got ostracized by all of Twitter for worrying more about how the league could reschedule the game instead of the health of Damar Hamlin, who was fighting for his life. Then there was also the time when Skip challenged his co-host's greatness by saying he couldn't compare it to Tom Brady. So all that tension accumulated to Shannon making the decision to leave the show after 7 years. Then Unk became a free agent and recently joined Undisputed's main competition, ESPN's First Take. Anyways, going back to Stephen A. Smith's appearance on the Joe Budden podcast, he dropped a bombshell when he said that Shannon Sharpe was in fact pushed out of Undisputed and that he did not leave on his own accord.
I would have looked at it that way if Shannon left of his own volition. I'm telling you he didn't. I'm telling you he was pushed out.
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Well, I'm telling you, and it's fact. Now, they could deny it. He wouldn't.
So after this podcast dropped, Jason Whitlock, who is a former ESPN and FS1 employee, went on his own show and has called out Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe for allegedly concocting up a BS story about what really went down. Okay, just to give you some background, Jason Whitlock is a very outspoken individual who does not bite his tongue on any issues, which I respect him for. However, he hasn't been too endeared by many from his own community and he has been basically labeled as an Uncle Tom. He has taken many pot shots at Shannon Sharpe in the past, and I think it's safe to say that these two probably don't like one another, yet journalistically speaking, he has quite an impressive resume. Anyways, Whitlock called BS on Stephen A. and Shannon's version of what went down with Shannon's departure from Undisputed, and that the pair were trying to paint Shannon Sharpe as some sort of victim with this new headline. Furthermore, Jason went on to say that Shannon developed a certain bad behavior that ultimately gave the show's producers no choice but to let him go. He then threatened that if they continue to run their mouths and tell lies, he was going to threaten to expose them all. Here's a clip right here.
I'm going to say this, speaking more specifically to Shannon Sharpe. Cut it out. Shannon Sharpe is trying to point a finger at a Fox executive or two, trying to smear them and put pressure on them and drum up a media storm of someone needs to be replaced, blame this executive, they pushed me out, blah, blah, blah. Shannon Sharpe needs to cut it out. I know what happened at FS1. And if Shannon and Stephen A. keep pushing this agenda, I'm going to expose all that I know. And I know all of it. And so, cut it out, guys. Shannon Sharpe's HR file is amazing. And they wanted him out for very good reasons. I just want you to know who Skip Bayless and Fox Sports and now ESPN are dealing with. Anybody at home, go call up the clip of a 50-year-old man sitting at courtside with his gay fashion designer at a Lakers game, and all that emotional energy and all that what went on with Shannon Sharpe. Does that look like a man who can control his emotions? Or does that look like someone who would snap and do unprofessional things, unbelievably unprofessional things in any environment? Fox Sports had no choice. None. Skip Bayless, in my opinion, had every reason to want Shannon Sharpe out of there after the Damar Hamlin situation. Shannon Sharpe, to use a term from the Shield or a gang term or what, he basically greenlit Shannon Sharpe. Greenlit Skip Bayless. He threw Skip Bayless under a bus and had Skip Bayless concerned about his safety in Los Angeles. Cut it out. And so they're trying to, well, it wasn't Skip that wanted Shannon out. Skip had no choice but to want to be out from underneath a very dangerous and emotional person. Go watch the Lakers tape and ask yourself, how many other 50-some-odd-year-old Hall of Fame athletes have you ever seen try to get in a fight with an NBA player sitting courtside? It doesn't happen because most people have more emotional control than that. And I get that many people don't like Skip Bayless. I get that Shannon Sharpe is popular over social media, but y'all need to cut it out. Leave it alone. Shannon, you're off with Stephen A. Smith, and now Shannon, you're ESPN's problem. And when you snap there and can't control yourself the same way you couldn't control yourself at that Lakers game, that's their problem to deal with. But cut it out. Go do your show. Club Shay Shay is great. You got the deal with Cowherd and the Volume. You're doing something with Chad Johnson. You've moved on to better things. Trying to smear people and damage people on your way out the door and to drag Stephen A. Smith into this and you're some victim and they wanted you out, cut it out. Leave it all, because I will go there. All the way there.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there. For those of you who don't know, Jason Whitlock worked at FS1 co-hosting Speak for Yourself with Marcellus Wiley until he left a few years ago. So he probably does know a lot of what happened there in the past and perhaps still has people there he talks to. It's pretty crazy he mentioned Shannon's HR file at FS1 because how would he know what's on Shannon's HR file? Those are possibly huge violations in the workplace. I'm not saying he's making it up, but let's be real. There's a lot of office gossip talk that goes around that would probably get a lot of employees in trouble. Whitlock then goes on to talk about the infamous day where Shannon appeared courtside at a Lakers game versus the Memphis Grizzlies and got into a fight with members from the away team. Honestly, when I saw this happen live on social media, I thought to myself that Shannon effed up huge and could possibly get into a lot of hot water with his employer. The guy's a public figure and acting like this in public, especially at a Lakers game, wanting to fight everybody. He made a huge public apology the next day on Undisputed and it just kinda ended there. But I'm pretty sure that must have made its way to his HR file. Next, Whitlock then went in on the Damar Hamlin tweet. If you don't recall, after Skip tweeted that insensitive tweet, everyone went ham on him. Like, I'm talking celebs, from current and former athletes to Hollywood stars, everyone attacked Skip. But the final nail in the coffin had to be when Shannon Sharpe refused to show up on the next day on Undisputed. And not much was really discussed about this move by Shannon, but it showed that he wasn't standing by Skip. Whether right or wrong, I think Shannon made a mistake by not showing up for the show, but rather protesting. The two could have discussed Skip's tweets and actions on the show. I'm sure Skip felt a certain way that his man did not have his back to the point where he couldn't even come on and discuss things. Sharpe, for the most part, has always remained professional at his job, but you're on a debate show and you have issues with your co-host and you don't even bother to show up or tell anybody. Think about if you did that at your job and how that would play out. One thing I didn't agree with Jason was how he labeled Shannon as dangerous and an emotional person. Like, we've all had our own personal freakouts here and there, and as bad as it looked for Shannon at the Lakers game, I kinda understand where he was coming from. He was basically getting punked publicly in front of millions of people. I just think he didn't have to escalate the situation by getting up, but I'm not putting that all on him. Also, I was kinda surprised that Whitlock mentioned something about Skip fearing for his safety in LA after the incident. He didn't go into much detail about that, so I'll leave it there. Lastly, he also brought up Shannon's past from CBS. I do recall hearing about an alleged incident that happened over 10 years ago. Shannon took a leave of absence from his analyst job at CBS after allegations that he threatened a woman and forced her to do it with him. Again, this was all in the past and just allegations, so we can't really hold that against Shannon in any way. That said, let me know what you think about this whole situation. Do you think Whitlock is telling the truth or just blowing hot air?